Okay. Hey guys, this is Simon with TRADEnPERFORM Coaching. It is a Sunday afternoon, about 4 o'clock my time, Central Time, and I'm here with Matt, one of the members in our room. Matt's about to go on a little vacation. He's had a really good year. He's gonna take some time off and do what you do on vacation, which is a good thing. Do a little relaxing. So, how are you doing today, Matt?
I'm doing awesome. Thanks for having me on.
Sure, of course. So, the purpose of this is really not to get completely technical in nature. I kind of just wanted you to introduce yourself a little bit. Tell us a little bit about what your trading experience was like before you got into the TRADEnPERFORM room, and then just kind of share your adventure and some of the things that were difficult, some of the things that were easy, and what you've some of the progress that you've made in your own trading. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started?
Yeah, for sure. So I am a younger guy, 25 years old. Been trading for 3 years now. I think I've been in the room since November of 2022. Was very new to futures when I met Simon. Hadn't really traded them too much. I was more into options and super boom and bust trader. So I make a ton of money, lose a ton of money, kind of that roller coaster ride. So get in the room, start learning futures, really bought into your process, which I lacked having a kind of a clear process and strategy that I would stick with. So bought into the process, got into futures, kind of as a beginner, and yeah, it's gone really well so far. So it's really cool, working with the algo and seeing things from a different point of view and doing the coaching and learning how to be a consistent trader, which is something, like I said, I was not too hot at.
Okay, very cool. So let me ask you. Obviously, I know you come from a athletic background. You played some college ball. What was the and then, of course, as you mentioned, you kind of had that boom bust cycle that almost everyone, including myself, has when you first come into the trading business. It's just, I think what makes it hard is the constant change in pace that the market tends to like to do.
Mm-hmm.
So what was as you were learning the process, right? My experience has been that what people don't like about it is the hard part of letting go of what works sometimes is how I would describe it. Like, you'd have a trade that sometimes would pay you really nicely, but it's hard to kind of wrap your mind around why it wouldn't work at other times, and would work and wouldn't work sometimes and would work wonderfully other times. What was the hardest part in learning the new trades and letting go of the old trades? What was your transition like?
Yeah, the market is fluid, but constantly refining the process and finding new patterns was helpful. There were some things that work the majority of the time, so kind of building that as a foundation, like the apex traps, and then adding other signals and whatnot to kind of, like I said, refine your process and continue to develop it. Because yeah, it's always changing, like so.
Right. And I find it interesting. It's a personality thing, right? Some people really respond and naturally, right? It's natural that you have kind of this pushback to, hey, I don't want to constantly change, right? But on the other hand, if you don't change, what you were doing doesn't work anymore, and the stops kind of strike out. But one of the things that's been consistent since you first got in the room, and I wanted to talk a little bit about it, was how's the structure of having the same stop every time? How did that change your point of view of how to trade? Did having the exact same stop on pretty much every setup help you make better decisions and deploy your leverage in a smarter way?
Yeah, 100%. And I think one of my biggest problems before I started with you was when trading options is I kind of like to gamble. So, and with all the Greeks and everything, something would go down, 20-30%. I knew I should take my stop earlier, and I wouldn't do it, and I would just hope that it would go well. So having this defined, risk reward, and knowing like, yeah, you're not going to win every trade, right? But knowing that over a period of time, you're going to be profitable. I think I'm sitting at like a 65 to 70-ish% win rate consistently. And with the, how I'm trading in the RR it's been really profitable for me. So that really helped me defining the edge and kind of getting that lockdown. It changed my trading entirely.
Okay, so one of the things I know when I ask you, one of the things I try to sift through and figure out, well, why is so you're doing very well, and you've adapted well, right? So so first let's talk about what are the products that you're trading with us, and I know you just recently picked up CL, but you weren't trading NQ, and the market went from quite a transition. When you came in the room, I guess October, November, market, we were in a pretty big bear market, right? And then the room flipped to long only in middle of December, which was tough on a lot of people, because not in CL, but in the equity indexes. It was tough on a lot of people because there were some good shorts in those. The market was getting pounded, but we got really rewarded in January for the long only bias. So the first thing I wanted to ask is, how was that? How difficult was it to employ, not in oil, but in NQ and the S&P 500? How long was that when you first came in the room and we said, look, let's just focus 100% on the long side of the trade? What was your initial response, and what was your experience in doing that, particularly in the bear market phase when we were in December and it really looked ugly?
Yeah, I like to short, but I really bought into your process, and kind of trusted more than me, right? So it wasn't, I was okay with it. I like kind of that bias, because then you can focus on one side of the market and you're not always switching your brain around. So it made it a lot easier to me. So just looking for the long setups as opposed to looking at both sides.
Okay, so I want you to dive into that a little bit. By just looking at one side, what was the benefit for you? Well, can you dive into that benefit a little bit further? I know what I want you to say, but I want to see if you'll say it before I say it. So go ahead.
Okay, yeah, for sure. There's definitely a mental fatigue when playing both sides. So having to focus on only the long setups, you can kind of, lock into those, right? And it helps you stay focused and not switching your bias back and forth, back and forth, back and forth.
Okay. And then when you, I want to go through this. I think one of the big benefits of doing that, particularly in the equity markets, is that it also lets you, and it takes a little bit of time, right? It's not like a Instamatic, but it really lets you focus on when you have a great, let's say a Apex trap, which is one of our setups, and we'll call it Super Apex in this case. One of the things we just added, and it's below a 15-minute area where we know that we would normally expect a big response back up. Because one of the things you've done really well, better than a lot of people in the room, is you really let your trades extend when you have a location. When you say, when I get X set up at X area, I know that I have a really good trade. You do a much better job than I do of letting that trade run. How did that mentality set in for you, and how long did it take you to develop that awareness that you're in an area that not only could you get a good, initial setup and get your P&L and profit off the trade, but that you actually had the potential for a really big stretch in the trade?
Yeah, so I like to, there's a lot of setups and there's a lot of different algos that we look at. And so I grade them. I have like a grading scale, I guess, and that depends on, a bunch of different variables. And then I'll stack those trades heavier if it's, I call them A++ setups, right? So like you said, below prior day's low, trapping, supernova, with an algo that I like, I will load that trade. And I know based off the testing and the coaching and everything that we've done, that has a very high probability for a big extension. And I'll let it run.
Okay, cool. So now, as you know, one of the things that I really am interested in talking about is tell me about the failure when that occurs, right? You've gone out there, you've let a trade kind of hang out, you've taken your risk off, I'm going to assume. And then let's say that a piece of news comes out, or the trade just doesn't work. It comes back and flips, and it nets you out break even. How do you mentally prepare for that, and how do you respond to that when that occurs?
Yeah, so that kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. Having a process and knowing that there is a high probability of a win. I'm okay with taking losses. It doesn't bother me because I know that based off back testing, based off what I've seen in the markets, that when I take these setups, there is a high chance of a big extension. So when they stop out, it doesn't bother me too much because I know over time, I'm going to hit a lot of them.
Okay, cool. So now let's talk about the inverse. How do you handle it when you come in? Let's say it was like maybe it was Friday morning where we really gapped and we didn't get a chance to get into our trade, right? There really was no entry after 8:30 in the morning to catch the long, right? Was that difficult for you at first when you come in? You'd be all pumped up to take good trades, to follow your process, and the market would gap and go and not give us an A++ setup. Did it take you a while to go, I guess I'm not doing anything here? Or how did you transition? Again, this is something you do really, really well. And so I think other members in the room would want to know, like, how did you frame that in your head to go, this is okay, and move on to the next day or into the afternoon? How did you, or not sit there and fight that all day long, which is a lot of traders' response when they don't get the entry. It happens to me. I get upset and I go, okay, well, this is a long time ago, but I'm going to sit here and fight this thing all day long. Since they didn't give me a chance to get long, I'm going to, find the handle on the short. How did you work through that when you don't get your chance, so to speak?
Yeah, it's definitely annoying, or having to go do something and you come back and you see you missed something and it's like, damn, I wish I was at the computer and I could have gotten in that trade. But there's always going to be another trade. There's always going to be another setup, and so kind of understanding that and then not being greedy. I think a lot of people, day trading, they get greedy and they try to force things when they shouldn't, and it works a couple times, and but most of the time it hurts you. And over my career, when I first started, it hurt me a lot, right? So kind of just knowing that there's going to be another trade. The market's not going anywhere. There's plenty of time to make money, and yeah, if you miss something, you just kind of take some deep breaths, know that it's gonna set up again. You just kind of gotta sit there and be patient.
Okay, so I want to transition to this now. So what role did, as you know, when you first started with me, the journaling part, and I'm a big fan of Jarrett Tendler's book, The Mental Game of Trading. What role did your journal play in helping you through that process and to execute at a high level consistently?
Yeah, journaling was cool because I wasn't doing it before we started together, but it kind of puts things in perspective, and it lets you go back on the day, mark down what you did right, what you did wrong, and look at it from a 50,000 foot view, right? Yeah, and I would say overall it helps you lock in your trading, lock in your emotions, and that is a great book. Finding where your weaknesses are and build on those so you have a better overall game.
Did it let you, was there, question, compared to your athletic career, do you find a lot of parallels between trading and preparing athletic wise for an event? And more interesting is, when you're playing, whether your game is baseball or football or whatever, anyone's swimming, whatever you play, usually those are a lot of preparation in one event per week, right? How have you risen to the challenge? And I got to tell you, Matt's pretty incredible. He's trading options. He works a full-time gig, believe it or not, while trading, and he trades full-time. I have, and he stays in incredible shape. So I really have no idea how the guy does it, to tell you the truth. But how was it to get up and be mentally prepared to play your A game every day versus when you played a game once a week and only for a season at a time?
Yeah, so I think so. I played football in college at a decently high level, and watching film each week and kind of dissecting. I was a defensive player, right, a linebacker, so dissecting what an offense is going to do and picking up on these little triggers so that you kind of could have insight or foresight, I guess you could say, into what that offense is going to do, based off these formations, based off these cues. You kind of have an idea there. Okay, there's probably three plays that they're going to run, right? And so transitioning that into what we're doing with the algo and the market, I think it gave me an edge that not a lot of people have, because for 4 years of my life, I was getting trained daily at a high level to be able to pick up on these small triggers, and that translated to trading pretty well.
Okay, good. So in that, here's my question that I'm always interested when people come in the room, right? So you've been around the block, there's a lot of BS out there with education and training, and most of it's worthless, right?
Mm-hmm.
So and then there's the what I call the no pay mafia, right? There's and particularly in your age group, there's this group that says, hey, the information should be free. It's out there, go and grab it. And I shouldn't have to pay anybody any amount of money. And you put a good investment in the room between coaching and just paying for the room by itself. It's not inexpensive, right? The room is $279 a month, for those who don't know, plus the one-on-one coaching. And you were all in, right? So, whereas I know you have to be influenced by guys and girls in your age, where there's this kind of this, no pay mafia. The information's free on the internet. Go get it. James, what was your mentality, and what was your thought process when you came in the room? I know you had a trial, but what was the thing that pushed you one way or the other? Said, yeah, this is worth it, or was it already a mindset you already had that paying for information to get shortcuts is always worth it? Or can you give me a little bit of background in that?
Yeah, so there is a lot of information out there. Some's good, some's bullshit. But there's not a lot of people with your kind of experience where, yeah, you can get those shortcuts, and you've put 30, 35 years of knowledge that you've, kind of passed down to me, and man, it's been worth every penny, because it's shown me a lot of things that, I would have figured out eventually, but it would have taken some time. So yeah, that kind of shortcut, like you say, that aspect of it was super helpful and worth every penny to me.
Great. And I'm really interested. One of the interesting things has been with Matt's, wow, he's working on quite an interesting project in options, right? And so one of the things that's been interesting in our conversations is how that dovetails with the futures as well. And, the next big project Matt and I are working on when he gets back from his vacation will be stacking the trades onto larger time frame trades, and identifying when we have particularly high odds of having a very large extension. And every once in a while you'll get in, and the market will give you that magic opportunity in the morning before it goes up, and goes on a face ripper, up or down, actually, right? And so that'll be the next step in our progression, and it'll be very interesting to watch you execute that and do what we call stacking trades. It'll be very, very interesting. The next place I wanted to segue to is you recently, I got you to pick up CL. Can you talk a little bit why you switched from my first question is this: when you came in the room, it was ES, then we jumped ES to NQ, then we've kind of started integrating CL. So a lot of people are like, whoa, you're moving markets really quickly. What was your perception of moving from one market to the other, and the differences in those markets, and the way and the time frame that they change it? Are those hard transitions for you, or are those once you get the rhythm, it's the same setup, just transferring it from one market to the other? How do you perceive that?
Yeah, I'll trade anything. I'll go where the money is. So with CL, as opposed to the NQ and ES. It was giving, you know, good rotations, great setups, and honestly, it was a lot easier. It's been a lot easier to trade recently for me. And
What's the easier part?
I think the amount of setups that it'll give with those rotations. So, you know, you can trade it up, down. You can get 3 or 4 really solid trades a day. And my win rate on CL is awesome. So
Above 70% still?
yeah, I would say CL is over 70%.
Right. So, well, I got to tell you from my standpoint, your transition's been amazing. And I'm really excited to see what you're going to do in the future, because I really think you're just scratching the top of this. Let me ask you this question, right? When you come in the room, you know, when you start reading obviously I'm older than you, but you know, when you start reading the market, you start off with these, you know, grand theory of things. There's always a grand theory of something in the market, right? And it's a bull market or a bear market. And when people come into my room, you see very quickly, I don't care if it's a bull or bear market. In the indexes, I'm always looking for a turn back to the upside. In CL, I don't care one way or the other. It can trade both ways. Also, I do some experimentation in the room, right? And so let me actually take a step back. When I go, hey guys, I'm trying a new trade out, right? So I haven't prepped Matt for the question, so we'll find out really quickly whether this is a bad question or a good one. I'll show up with a new trade or a new way to enter the trade, and I'll kind of throw it into the room in the morning. I've learned not to do that so much anymore. I've learned a better way of presenting it. But what's your response to that when I come up with a hey, I'm looking at this market, I see this setup, I'm going to trade this for a few days and try to make it work. How do you integrate that information? Do you take I'm going to sit back and let Simon kind of trip, and then, or see if he does well, and I'll follow his lead? Or does it really throw your mental game, or is your mental game already set before I say anything, and nothing I'm going to say is going to throw you from that? Can you chat about that a little bit?
Yeah, so you know, the market is like an everlasting puzzle, which is really cool. So you're always trying to figure out, you know, these tiny details to up your edge. So, you know, you're really good at finding these kind of details and presenting them to the room. So when you do something like that, I'll usually watch it for, you know, a week or so, or, you know, do a really intensive back testing on it before I implement it personally. And then I make sure that what you're looking at, I can add to kind of my system and my grading scale. So if it's, you know, whatever it is, I'll kind of grade it out on top of my current setups that I like, and just use it to add confluence to the trades.
Okay, great. So with that being said, you know, it's almost inevitable with me when you introduce a new trading idea or a new concept, and someone you end up with that bad day, right? So let's say you come in with a new trade, and let's say you take your max stop for the day. Have you had a max stop since you've been in the room?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, tell us that.
Not really too many.
I think people would want to know, because you've clearly survived it, right? You've done very, very well. So yeah. I think people want to know, what is the original emotional response your body experiences? How do you respond to that? And how do you prep yourself for the next day for staying on process? Because many people have a hard time with that. And I know what my answer is, but you know, I've got a dog in this fight, because I'm trying to get people to do it a certain way. I want to know what your response is, because the only dog you have in this fight is your own P&L and your own capital. So can you talk a little bit about how the bad days go and how you reset for those?
Yeah, it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, is, you know, with a really high win rate, a good edge, and a good process, but you know, bad days are going to happen, and you have to take it day by day, but you also have to have kind of a larger overview of what you're trying to accomplish, right? So yeah, you take your 3 stops, your max drawdown or whatever. You have to know that, tomorrow's a new day. Tomorrow's another chance
Okay,
to.
so here's my question with that, right? Is your response emotional or physical, or do you allow yourself any self-pity? So for me, I'll give you an example. So for me, as you've heard in the room, because I'm a sore loser, if anyone in the room is a sore loser, I'm a sore loser, right? So usually there's a slapping of the hand on the desk, and then there's a getting up and working my punching bag, which is in the other room. And for me, it's twofold. So I'll share. Like when I do a poor job, or I can interpret that I've done a poor job, that I should have somehow magically known that our best setups weren't going to work on this particular day. I really beat myself up. It's twofold. I really don't care about my own trading, but I do care about the people in the room. And I want to somehow magically come up with a solution that would have made it go away, right? But then the other part is how long I allow myself to feel negative. So I generally give myself 20 minutes to feel negative about something, and then I'll go do my my Wim Hof breathing methods and work the punching bag or go for a walk in the field and kind of cool off, reset, and then do exactly what you said. I know I bring myself back around by going and looking at my stats day over day. I think it's natural to want to overweight the most recent performance and underweight the late, the as the data gets later. What do you do? What's your physical process that you go through when you've had a bad day?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not happy when I have a bad day. I don't think anybody is ever happy to lose money, right? So,
Right.
you want every day to be, I made good money today. But it's unrealistic, especially with the way the markets are. Yeah, I like to work out, so I'll go to the gym. Like you said, walking is great. Kind of just cooling off, getting away from the computer. So I'll even I'll lock my trading account so I can't get into it. Because that was something I struggled with for a while on options. Is I'd hold something too long, it would do poorly, and then I'd stize in way too heavy on a lower odds setup, and smash my account and make a bad day worse. And at some point, as a day trader, you're either going to quit or you're going to get tired of losing, right? And
Right.
you're gonna have to figure out that psychology and what you need to do in order to be successful. And yeah, so bad day, not happy, but going and working out, or going and grabbing a beer, and then just kind of getting away from the markets and letting it digest. And by the next day, I'm it's hindsight, right? So it's in the past, and it's another day to try again, and stay on process, because knowing that over time the process works.
Matt, one of the things I really pushed you to do when you came in the room was to limit the amount of time you had in front of the screens. I really pretty much asked you to cut it off at 11 o'clock until the time as you really built your capital, right? And it had a lot to do with more mental fatigue than it had to do with whether there was opportunities in the afternoon or not. And then I said, look, Fed days, skip Fed days. The Fed chair speaking, just let it go until you've reached a level where you can absorb those bad days. How difficult was that for you at first? And because you seem to be you don't seem to be, you are the guy. Like I'll say, Matt, are you there? Matt, you're like working. You'll text back, working out, right? So how you've taken it to heart. Tell me about that transition from leaving early and believing you could still make a lot of money and still leave early on the day that you weren't missing anything that was taking place in the market.
Yeah, I don't want to trade all day. I want to go do cool stuff. So I like to climb. I like to go hiking. There's a lot of other things that I would rather do than be staring at screens. So seeing one that we can get a few good setups in the mornings was enough for me. So I make a couple dollars and I can go and enjoy my life, right? You don't want to be glued to the screen. And I think the best trading is in the morning. You've kind of taught me that, and you've showed me that. And most of the times I don't take good trades during the afternoon. So if I do trade in the afternoon, I only trade my top setups if they show up, and usually they don't show up. And I'll even size down on those trades also to kind of protect my capital from the morning. There's nothing worse than having a great morning and then coming into the afternoon and, you know, losing all of it, going negative, or even losing some of it, right?
Yeah, and you know what, it catches you off guard because my experience has been that, you know, I'll kind of sit there and I'll go, you know, I'm only going to take this one trade and I'm pretty sure I'll make money on it, right? Well, what catches you off guard, and I know I'm not the only one this happens to, is you'll sit there and you'll take a trade and you'll be like, well, it's just one trade and I'll do fine. Well, let's say you take it and then you get slipped on the trade or it stops you uber fast. But those are the worst for me. Like I'll take it and it didn't even give me 5 seconds in the trade. It just sweeps me and stops me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is when I come in the morning, I know my mindset is, okay, take a stop at first. Like I've planned it out in my head, right? If I take a stop, already seen myself taking that stop, going to the next trade, taking the next setup, scaling it off properly, letting the trade push, so on and so forth, right? And then being very, very specific when I start off my day, right? But when I come back in the afternoon, if I've made a lot of money in the morning, I come back in the afternoon and I'll go, you know, my preparation time will be little to none. Won't take the time to go and do the breathing exercises. And then I'll sit down. So what catches me off guard is if the trade works, there's really not a problem, right? I take that trade and I go along. But because I haven't done the mental preparation part and the whole visualization of the afternoon trading, I'll come in and I'll go take that trade and it'll stop me. And I had no mental acuity for taking that loss, right? As a matter of fact, in my head, it was just the opposite. Oh, it's just gonna be a quick little trade, add some P&L to the table. And then my response is immediately to fix that problem, right? And what I notice is when people are in that fix mode, I know it's not just me. I've seen it happen to a lot of people, right? You'll jump on anything to fix that trade, right? Oh, maybe this will work, maybe that'll work, and all of a sudden you're not in a high level, zoned, focused, doing your job trading methodology. You're in a scrambled, save your butt methodology, and you kind of get this high anxiety that you've lost any money. And it's a combination of feelings for many people, myself included, is a combination of feeling both stupid for, especially when you said, I'm not going to trade in the afternoon, then you take that trade that dings you. It's a combination of feeling stupid, anxious, and then you have this feeling of, well, I just want to make that money back and then I can stop. And the next thing you know, you've given back 50% or 100% of your day, right? That's what the mental exhaustion does to you, right? It's really hard to stay in the game and execute it at a high level. I'm sure you've experienced something like that before, probably in the options where you discuss adding to the position, trying to make it whole in the afternoon, see if they'll kind of bail you out of the trade. Have you experienced that? Early in, did you experience that kind of, why did I do that? Why did I take that trade in the afternoon when it was off process or not on the process I wanted to follow?
Yeah, I've definitely jumped off process a handful of times, and sometimes it, you know, works out well, and you know, the majority of the time it doesn't, right? So it's something that I've had to journal and kind of work through and know that in the long term it's not going to be beneficial to me. And then working to kind of cut that out of my trading and my psychology, right? And you know, via our coaching, you kind of helped me walk through those steps. The mental game of trading kind of gave me another outline that we've built on, and yeah.
Question for you: why did you stay? And I'm actually interested. So you are very, very consistent with your coaching week in, week out. Why? Because you've been making money for a while now. It's not like you're magically making more and more money every time we do a coaching session. What's been your experience in coach, and are there any parallels between the coaching that we're doing and the coaching you received as an athlete?
So I guess when I first got in the room, like I said earlier, I was kind of an amateur, right? I didn't really know, and I'm still an amateur. I haven't been doing this too terribly long, but once I kind of got a grasp on how this whole thing works and the setups and stuff, our coaching is gone from you kind of teaching me, not that you don't teach me anymore, but it's more kind of back and forth dialogue. And it's, I think of it as like iron sharpens iron, right? And it's super helpful. And, you continuously are feeding your knowledge and your experience into me, and it's helping me grow exponentially. And yeah, I mean, I'll probably always do coaching, right? So it's cool. And, we have fun on our coaching. We get a lot accomplished, and, trying out new ideas. I'll see, patterns I see, and, we'll go and look at them and whatnot. And
Right. And I agree. It does become, it moves from a acquiring of knowledge, which obviously at first that's where we had to concentrate, is just getting that knowledge base in. But then it really becomes performance based, and how do we catch more nuance? And then really the stacking of the trades is the part that I'm, when you get back from your hiatus, that's the part I'm really excited to go to work on, because I think that's going to offer just some incredible opportunities. And then recognizing, the other part is recognizing when there's exceptional trades that, the part where we'll get to is that 2 or 3 times a year where you have all the ducks lined up in a row and you're just ready to knock them down, and you see it, you know that it's coming, you know how to position for it properly, stage the trade, get the risk off. But then you also, and you've got a natural talent for this, going, I've got them, and you don't touch the trade. You just let it rip. You have a natural ability for it. I have to work for it. You have a natural ability for it, which is really a big blessing. And then I got to tell you, one of the things you bring to the table that's really important was this. You never kind of breach this subject of, hey, I've got to make money in 6 months or I'm out, or I've got to make money in 2 months or I'm out, or I've got to support myself off of whatever amount of money I have. I have to double it. You had really realistic goals coming in.
mm-hmm.
And you knew 2 things. You had 2 things in this picture. You're like, look, I know a lot of money can be made in this business. All right. I understand that knowledge is there, but you also understood the gap you had between getting from where you are to where you wanted to be. And you gave it a realistic amount of time to learn. And you also sized correctly in your trading. And you did have some setbacks along the way that you absorbed really well. And so I'm going to guess that comes from your athletic background. You took disappointment really, really well. And but you also set the expectation moving forward of reasonable goals that can be attained. And you didn't try to crush it overnight. That's a big, big, big kudos to you. It's hard to get people to do that because there's so much stuff, stuff wrapped around money, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it means so much for money has so many definitions. Some people idolize it. Some people see it as a way of getting out of a situation they're in. Everybody wants it, right? There's really not many people who don't want money, right? And that plays an outside force. And one thing you did really well was getting that picture of understanding. It's like, okay, the money will come if I do all the process. But all the process in place, I size correctly, and you didn't ever give me the impression that it was a one-day show, right? Where you had to capture it all at one time. And you kind of always had this quiet confidence about you. You're like, hey, if I follow the process, the money will come. And then you behaved like that. Like everyone says that, but then you behave like that. And one of the things you were really, really good at, let's talk about it actually for a second. How did you figure out how to size up in your trades? Because you got pretty healthy in your CL trades, size-wise.
Yeah. It kind of goes with my grading scale. So once I kind of built my account to a position where, I could size up and I was comfortable with the drawdown if the trade didn't work out. And then, knowing if the trade didn't work out, there's going to be a ton of other trades that are going to work out. that kind of mindset, I guess, allowed me to say, okay, these trades look good. They're the setups I like. They're the A++. I'm willing to risk this amount of money to see if this trade works. But yeah, I started pretty small. When I first got in the room trading micros and whatnot, and I would trade one micro for every $1,000 in my account or something like that, and got over certain thresholds, switched to minis and full size trades, and kind of just continued to grow. And I took it slow. It's something that would mess me up when I was trading options was, like I said, I'd make a bunch of money, relatively quickly, and I know everything now. This is I make $1 zillion. And then I'd, size way too heavily and lose it all, right? So kind of buying into that. Because, when I joined the room, I made the conscious decision because I was on the brink of, I was like, all right, I don't know if this is going to work out, right? I was willing to take one more shot. I'd heard some things about you through some other people that were already in the room. Then we had our first conversation. I was like, all right, I'm gonna give this, a shot. I'm gonna take it super slowly. And I'm gonna just kind of let it build organically and not try to force anything.
Very cool. So let me ask you, it happens to everyone, right? There's that inevitable day you increase trade size and you take the ding, right? Did you visualize that beforehand? Did you go, okay, I'm going to increase size, and did you mentally practice seeing that stop hit and then continuing on with the trade size, or what's your approach to that?
Yeah, with the way that we trade, which I really like, is there's a defined stop and there's a defined risk. So when you do size up, you have to do the math. It's got to make sense. And, I like math. I like looking at numbers and seeing things over time and how they'll work out. So when I did start to size up, I made sure that via my psychology, I was okay with the stop. And if I wasn't okay with that stop, even if my account would allow me to size up, I wouldn't size up because I wanted to be okay psychologically. I didn't want to size up, take a big loss, and then go into that panic mode. Oh, I need to make money. I'm going to size up even more, or I'm going to take these setups that are B+, but I'm going to load into them like they're A++. And yeah, that's kind of how I guess I went about doing it.
Very cool. Well, I think we hit all the highlights. I think you answered a lot of questions of people that look that want to know two things, right? You really model really well what it looks like to come from a background of very little experience and being able to turn yourself really within 6 months into quite a profitable trader. And you've shared some of your ups and downs, but most importantly, I think it's your mindset that lets you operate so well. And you've done a great job following the process. And, listening to someone is hard, and trusting someone is hard to do. And you do a great job of going, I got to tell you, once I told myself, do it this way, only do it in these areas and do it at these times. And if you do that with X amount of people, you get about half the people that do it, half won't. I could tell really quickly you were all in. And when I asked you to explain to me when trades went wrong, one of the hallmarks of a really good trader is if you ask someone what went wrong with their trading, they don't want to discuss it. And you were always open to discussing it. Well, I did this, I made this decision this way. And we kind of really broke down what went wrong. And you're great at it. And I think it's really the hallmark of a successful trader is the ability to look at the negative side of your profile and go, this is what needs to improve. And that dovetailed really nicely with the journaling and Jarrett Tendler's work.
Mm-hmm.
And I am super excited when you get back from this next adventure to go to the next, take it to the next level, and really combine now with our new little, some of our newer setups, combine the options with the futures at the same time. Will be really, really some cool stuff to get some big extensions. That'll be lined up and ready to go when we, you and I get back to work together. And I'm just so proud of you, the work that you've done. For 25 years old, you show an enormous amount of maturity and focus. And I wish I had that same focus and maturity when I was your age. I did not. I was good at making money, but I was not good at doing any of the other things that you do so well, which is number one, listening to an idea and then taking it and processing it and figuring out how it integrates with your psychology. You do a great job with it. I think you're in the top. I think you're in the A class. If there's an A class, I would have been in the D class. I was just so full of myself and so eager to make the money that I just wasn't willing to listen to anybody or anything. I had to do it my way. And Matt, let me tell you, you're gonna save about 15 years of agony and frustration of these boom bust cycles that I would go through. You're gonna skip all those and hopefully just go right to the, making a lot of money and paying your taxes and enjoying your life. And so that's really great. I'm really happy for you.
Yeah, I appreciate that a lot. You saying that, and you have helped me immensely, and I'm forever going to be grateful for our friendship and mentorship that you're providing me.
Very, very cool. Well, look, I'm going to let you go enjoy your evening, and we will talk. Well, I'll probably see you in the room tomorrow morning. And you have a great night, and I will wrap this up, and we'll talk soon again. If anyone has any questions or you'd like to try out the room, this is the way you do it, which I will be my last little shameless bit of promotion. If I can find it. Let's see, here it is. There you go. TRADEnPERFORM@gmail.com. And if you'd like to check out the room for 5 days, email me. We only have 2 spaces open, but we may only have 1 space actually. Now that I think in my conversation with Matt, but we have 2 spaces open at the second. So at any rate, have a wonderful day, guys. Let's go have a great week. Matt, you have a great week, and I will talk to you later. Thank you, sir. I appreciate your time.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. See you later, my friend.
See ya.